Good afternoon. I'm Dawn Rhodes, Chief Business and Finance Officer and Vice President, and welcome to our second virtual town hall. And the panel today includes Vicki Hunter, our AVP for Infrastructure Services, Matt Lasecki, our AVP for Human Resources, and Elena Kirikakis. Did I get it right?
You got it right.
General Counsel. So we'll jump right in and start with some questions. Please feel free to send whatever questions you have. We want to help supervisors and employees get more comfortable with telework, and so that's what this town hall is all about. The very first question we have, can you please clarify for folks if we are getting paid and that telework does mean work from home? Who wants to take that question?
I can take that question. So we've actually put an answer to this specific question on the FAQ. And yes, I can clarify that you will be paid and that telework does mean work from home. What you are paid, the methodology that you are paid will depend on the circumstances, whether you are working from home remotely, working on campus, exempt, non-exempt. And we also have some FAQs about how people will enter that time in. But the intent is to minimize the financial impact of COVID-19 related absences as best as possible.
Thank you. Here's one for you, Vicki. As we transition to telework, how can the university make sure that the IT and help desk departments are fully staffed to help set up home computers?
So within Central IT, we've taken some measures to make sure that the help desk is staffed. Even though they will be teleworking, they will be able to answer any questions and calls that come in. And as well as for setting up a home computer, I would recommend that you follow up with your normal IT support staff to see what needs to happen in order to make that transition for you to telework at home. There may be situations where you're trying to stand up a brand new computer, which takes a little more effort, versus something that, you know, you're just having an application that needs to be installed. So we again recommend that you reach out to your existing IT staff to get those questions answered and get the assistance that you need.
Okay, next question. If you're using administrative leave, do you still need to be available during work hours at home? Which one of you two would like to take that question, Matt or Elena?
So the answer somewhat depends. In certain circumstances, if you're designated as an essential person but you're on administrative leave, you may get called and you would be expected to respond in those circumstances.
Anybody want to add anything to that?
I think that that's correct, that we do have individuals who are on administrative leave who aren't required to be on campus at this time, but as circumstances change, those requirements may change as well. So everyone should, as a take-home message, just know that we should be communicating with each other, supervisors and employees, so that everyone understands what expectations are.
What if you're one of those employees who is assigned to be at home, but you really don't have the tools to work from home? So you're assigned to be at home because you're not essential and you don't have anything to do, so you're on administrative leave. Do you have to be at home?
No, in that case, if your work is such that you are determined that you cannot telework, the expectation is not that you're sitting at home. I would say that this is a different situation than we've probably ever faced before. So we would expect some flexibility. And as Elena said, let's try and stay in touch as much as possible over the coming weeks.
And I would just want to add to that is, you know, we're giving these answers on behalf of, you know, HR stance about administrative leave. But of course, everyone should follow the guidance that we've been given from public health officials. So in terms of staying at home, there might be other reasons you should be staying home.
Thank you for adding that. I would be teleworking. Sometimes I found that I need to come to my office to reboot my computer in order to use VPN to access the office PC remotely. Is it okay to come to the office if I found that I need to come to reboot my office PC? That sounds like a Vicki question.
And I would, again, recommend that you contact your IT support staff. We do, in Central IT, have folks on site to assist with those kind of, issues. So again, I wouldn't recommend you coming straight in. Contact them first, and then they'll be able to give you some guidance.
Okay. Another question. This one is a good one. A non-exempt laboratory research staff considered essential for, our non-exempt laboratory research staff considered essential for pandemic circumstances? If so, would they qualify for the compensatory hour or cash bonus?
So the first part, the answer to the first part of that question is that yes, non-exempt laboratory staff may be considered essential. It depends upon the job, and it could be job by job as determined by your supervisor. And I'm sorry, could you repeat the second part of that?
If so, would they qualify for the compensatory hours or cash bonus?
I think the answer to that is yes. If an individual is a non-exempt employee, they will receive the compensatory time or cash or the equivalent in salary for the hours they actually work on campus. So we are also attempting to only have individuals on campus when it's absolutely necessary, so that an individual who's been designated as non-essential may be on campus for a period of time that's less than their full shift, so that they might fill the rest of the time with administrative leave.
Kind of have the opposite of that. About if you work from home for less than 1 hour and you are exempt, should you use administrative leave or 1 hour for 1 hour worked and 7 administrative? I think the question is basically asking if you're at home and you work 1 hour and you don't work the other 7, should you be using 7 hours of administrative leave?
I'll let Matt chime in on this. I think generally the answer is no, although it depends. It's going to depend on what it is that you're doing, what it is that your supervisor has you doing. As exempt employees, we are expected to work until our job is done, and we aren't counting hours in quite the same way. And so employees who are exempt and are assigned to work remotely, they are generally understood that they will be entering D or duty day on their time card or their timesheet. So.
Yeah. As Elena said, exempt work is essentially you're working to complete tasks. You're not working a certain number of hours. So if you need to be away for a couple of hours or you need to care for children or something during the day, we're trying to be flexible in schedules. And it may be that you work 2 hours in the morning, don't work for 2 hours, and then work for a few hours, and then maybe you're answering emails in the evening in the night hours. But the basic idea is that at an exempt level, you are working to complete projects and tasks and not counting the number of hours that you're working.
I will add one more exception to the exception, because that's how so much of this is. USM has clarified for us that individuals who cannot work remotely because schools are closed and they need to take care of dependent children, that sick leave is available for those situations. So if you have dependent children and you simply cannot work remotely and there isn't a way to adjust your schedule on a daily basis or a flexible basis to still get all of your work done, you would need to take sick leave in that instance. But that's really a great benefit because normally sick leave would not be available for that type of absence.
All right, next question. For UMB employees who work within FPI practices, should we follow UMB policy or FPI?
So I understand that some of these questions related to these things are being handled by each individual organization. We have employees also working in the dental school who may be on the corporate side versus the university side, and I encourage you to check with your supervisor. Generally speaking, you should follow the rules of your organization.
Okay. Are hourly employees being compensated when they telecommute, and if they are placed on administrative leave, will it be paid? A lot of similar questions, but slightly different.
Yes, and just again, to the basic message is the university is going to work to make sure that people are not hit by this financially to the best that we can. So that means that if an employee is non-exempt and they are teleworking, they enter their time, their work hours as hours, they will be paid their regular pay. And to the extent that they haven't filled out their entire shift, they would use the remaining hours as administrative leave.
Can you please clarify and clearly indicate who is considered essential personnel required to be on campus?
Go ahead, Matt.
Absolutely. As with a lot of this stuff, it depends. Essential on campus is someone or a job that is performing duties that cannot be performed outside of the workspace here on campus and is essential to the continued business operations of the university. That's the definition as best that we can put it in place. That may mean different things in different departments. And the clearest example that I could give would be if somebody has responsibility for caring for animals, we can't do that remotely. So that would be an on-campus type of position, and you would be required to be on campus to do it.
Yes, and you should know if you are designated as essential for pandemic circumstances on campus, you should know that because your supervisor should tell you that. And if your supervisor hasn't told you that, then you should not be on campus, generally speaking, right?
Yes.
Is there a tentative date when we return to normal operations? Should we plan on at least 2 weeks?
Dawn, I think that's a question for you.
So we do not have a tentative date. We know we will be at least out through April 5th, and we'll continue to assess that time frame. I would not be surprised if we're out longer than April 5th. Okay. Next question. What if we are caretakers of elderly individuals? Are we allowed to take leave even if we are essential? Matt?
Yeah, so there are a lot of unique situations that are created by COVID-19. I would say that if you're an employee that's in that type of position, please contact the Human Resources Department and also have a conversation with your supervisor. To the extent possible, we want to be very accommodating with people who have to care for others in this environment.
Here's one. Not sure if this is really one of our questions, and if so, tell me. Given that resident physicians do not have sick leave, how will the self-quarantine policy apply to this group with respect to getting paid?
That is not our question. So
And that would be
we're
a
happy
question
to
for?
Send that to the hospital. Yeah.
Okay. So if you ask that question, please realize that you need to talk with folks at the hospital and their HR department to get an answer to that. How will we find out when we're able to return to work? There will be a campus announcement and people will be given advance notice. I anticipate that we will have our environmental services team come in again to do another deep cleaning before people return to campus, but you will get communications from the multitude of ways that we communicate with the campus. Okay. If you are supposed to work remotely, what if you don't have internet services?
So I think the first thing that you would do is that you would talk to your supervisor about any kind of services that you need. To the extent possible, we would try and be accommodating in those situations. But again, each one may be a little bit unique, and so we'd want to talk about your specific situation.
Okay. I'm seeking for a more specific definition of essential employees for pandemic situations as SOP, I'm assuming that's the School of Pharmacy, deems graduate students as essential for the pandemic situation.
Yeah, I think the answer is similar to the other question, and that is it's just dependent upon what your day-to-day functions are. And if that work cannot be completed outside of the campus environment, then it is possible that you would be determined to be an essential on-campus employee.
I want to add to that our graduate students are students first versus employees, and there is going to be some communication that comes out soon giving guidance to our graduate students and the necessity or lack thereof for them to be considered essential employees. Okay. Here's a question. Do you have any general suggestions on how to structure your workday from home?
Yeah, actually, Human Resources is getting ready to put out some guidance on some of the best practices for teleworking. But I would say, just off the top of my head here, stay in touch, set up regular interactions with your supervisor. If you are a supervisor, set up regularly scheduled meetings using WebEx or teleconferencing with your staff and your direct reports. But the most important thing is to keep those lines of communication open so that we can make sure that we're being productive.
Okay, so somebody asked us to please revisit the administrative leave, what administrative leave means in terms of pay, because they were having a difficult time hearing. Can whoever answer that again for us, please?
Sure. So administrative leave is the category of leave that exempt or non-exempt employees would use on their timesheets if they are unable to work remotely as provided for by their supervisor, provided that they have not been listed as an essential employee for pandemic circumstances on campus. So that's just the code that would be used. If an individual is required to work remotely and they are working for part of the day as a non-exempt employee, it is possible that they could be both entering regular work hours and also entering administrative leave hours to complete the entirety of their regular shift.
Okay. How do people learn how to VPN?
So I would definitely recommend that you can either contact the help desk and they can give you the instructions. There are also instructions on the CITS website to kind of step you through the process for setting up VPN. And you can also reach out to your typical IT support person, and they would also be able to kind of step you through the instructions. But keep in mind, not every application that's out there requires a VPN access. So you may not even have to use VPN in order to get to the particular application that you're trying to get to. So definitely reach out to your IT support person to get clarification on exactly how to move forward.
And what if you've never worked from home before? How do you learn how to download the whole Microsoft Office suite so that you have those tools available?
So if you're using Office 365, which is the online services, you can easily access your Word documents, everything through Office 365. But again, if you definitely are not tech savvy and want some hand holding, there's also some training opportunities going on, and they've all been outlined on the SITS website so that you'll be able to take those training classes online. You can do some Google searches as well, because Microsoft has done a great job in explaining how to use some of those services and how to download if you actually do in fact need to download some software. But I would, again, even if we weren't in this situation right now, I would reach out to your IT support person and they could walk you through what actually needs to be done.
Matt, here's one for you. As we're teleworking and we're not with our colleagues and seeing them face to face on a daily basis, how do you keep up a spirit of team in your organizational unit?
Yeah, excellent point. And it's one of the biggest challenges of quickly moving to a telework situation. Again, as I said before, communication is key. Having regular meetings scheduled, being able to interact with folks, calling folks, just say at 2 o'clock on a Thursday and calling up Elena and saying, Elena, how are things going? Recognizing that we're really a team and we're all in this together. And so reaching out to folks and staying in touch. Regularly scheduled meetings and video conferencing is very important, because phone is great, but actually seeing faces helps us stay close together. But I do have to stress that it is important to schedule them, because we get busy and time slips and we're all working at a breakneck pace. It really is important to have that specific time to take away and meet with your staff and the people around you.
Another question, if we're going to be teleworking for such a long time and travel is basically shut down, especially for business, how do people have access to professional development during this time?
I'll take that one.
Go right ahead.
We have access to the learning system, the learning management system. It is available online. You can go in through the U Maryland website, and you can access the several thousand training and development opportunities that are there. We're also working within Human Resources to figure out what's the best way to take our in-person learning events that have been scheduled through the spring and into the summer and turn them more into virtual events such as this. There'll be more information coming as we can develop those programs. We'll certainly share that information with everybody.
Okay. Here's a question from our audience. If a supervisor, and I hope this never happens, if a supervisor disregards campus guidelines, held meetings in violation, or took other irresponsible actions, what is the appropriate time and procedure for complaints?
Well, I think you can always contact HR, but let me also make a plug for our Ethics Point hotline. The hotline, which is on our website, is really a good place to submit complaints of that kind of nature that can then be triaged by the appropriate offices.
Okay, thank you. Can staff bring their work computers home if they don't have computers at home to support necessary university software?
And I think within central IT, that's been worked out within the various departments. There are some guidelines that folks need to follow. So again, reach out to your supervisor as well as your IT support staff, because there may be some surplus equipment that rather than taking your existing desktop per se home, there may be a laptop that already has the particular software already loaded, virus protection software installed, and you can probably take that home. So I would definitely recommend you work with your supervisor and again your IT staff.
I'll also put a plug in. If you are using your home computer, please have virus protection software installed. And SITS has been kind enough to identify various places where you might actually get that software for free. I think it's on our frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
So please, please, please protect your computers when you're using university data. Next question.
And
Go
just to
ahead.
add to that, again, all of that information related to virus protection and where to get it, it's on the SITS website as well as the COVID-19 frequently asked question, top 10 IT recommendations.
When is the deadline to use comp time for salary employees who have to report to work?
Okay, so I will attempt to answer this question, but it's maybe not a complete question. So currently, the university is open, and we are operating, and employees are perhaps working at home. Some are working on campus, but we are still an open university, and at this time, exempt employees have not been authorized to receive additional comp time. Is that correct? So that answers that question.
Okay. Is the university considering suspending research operations? I will start with no. They are considering looking at what are the most, well, all research is critical, but are there any ways that we can do the research differently that additionally helps protect people? There is a task force that Dr. Gerald has asked to be formed, and they've already started to meet and provide recommendations specifically on this topic, and we will be sending guidance out to the campus community shortly. Next question. Will the Wednesday night work desktop computer update impact VPN ability?
It will not. So the desktop group has taken some precautions to block the reboot so that it does not impact people's ability to still get their patches done, but not be able to VPN in. You probably may or may not even notice that that happened this past Monday this week. So most people based on the information I received, there was no impact. So.
If an out-of-state conference was canceled and we already paid for the flight that can't be canceled or refunded, will UMB still reimburse? This is a question that's been asked, and I'm almost positive it is on our frequently asked questions. We already have a policy in place that kind of addresses this. First, we ask for people to do everything that they can to have that ticket refunded, a credit provided, et cetera, you provide that documentation and you will be eligible to be reimbursed. Next question. Please let people know about EAP services if available virtually, since many employees are experiencing stress. Does anybody have any updates on EAP?
It is my understanding that they do intend to offer EAP services virtually. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but by all means, people should take advantage of this resource. It's a great resource for our employees, and it's free and confidential.
Will a new hire orientation be held either in person or online at any point during this closure for individuals who were set to start employment with the university?
Yes, we just had onboarding Monday, and we onboarded 39 individuals. We have onboarding scheduled for the next several, we do it biweekly, and so we have them scheduled out. Based upon current guidance, we are still operating and looking at getting people in here to complete paperwork. If that changes, then we may have to reevaluate. But we are still hiring individuals, and we are still conducting onboarding.
Do you want to talk about the virtual way you'll be conducting onboarding?
Yeah, one of the things that we're looking to do is to create a recording of onboarding and be able to push that via web to individuals who are joining our organization to reduce the amount of in-person contact. At that point, then, we would simply be limited to the pre-employment paperwork, and we can find ways to manage that process.
Let's see, if we are not expected to if we're now expected to use our personal laptops for full-time work, who is responsible for repairs that may arise? Can we be reimbursed for purchases like adapters and external devices?
Well, as far as I know, for those who needed a device within Central IT, the departments themselves were making those purchases available. So, for instance, if you needed a laptop to take home, either they had surplus and they were issuing those laptops, or they were in the process of buying an additional laptop so that you wouldn't have to use your personal device. As far as paying for adapters and things of that nature, I'm not really sure.
I would strongly encourage you to contact your IT person because they may actually have what you need available. And again, we are trying to provide actual laptops from around campus if we have them, to avoid having to use your personal computer. If people are unable to work remotely, why would we need to use sick leave when others are using administrative leave?
Can you restate that question? I just want to make sure I understand.
I think they may have mixed up a response to a different question. If people are unable to work remotely, why would you need to use sick leave when others are using administrative leave?
Okay, so I think I understand that was in reference to my answer earlier. If an individual is able to telework generally, but they are not able to telework in a moment, a particular day or a week, because, for example, their dependent children are at home and they cannot reasonably get anything done, for example. It is, they are still a working employee. They are still assigned to telework. They just are not able to do their assignment. They are able to use sick leave to cover those absences. So that is different from an individual who their job functions are not capable of being performed remotely. And so those are important distinctions.
Should I keep going? Okay. Okay, so, Vicki, what would be your words of wisdom for anybody having to use technology from home?
I would say keep your kids. If you have a device that's been issued from the university, keep your kids and your friends and your families off of those devices. That should be for your personal device. Refrain from using software that was not originally installed on that machine, download it from any source on the web, because there are some malicious software out there, so I would keep in touch with your IT support person to make sure whatever software you actually need has been vetted through them. Again, just keep close contact with your support person. If you have any questions, the help desk can also guide you to the appropriate person who you need to talk to. If you have any questions, issues, don't get frustrated. We'll get through this. Things will come up, but again, just communication.
Here's another question. Will contractual employees, C1s or 2s, still be paid by way of administrative leave if they are not able to telework?
Okay, same answer.
I believe so. At this time, I believe the answer is the same.
Yep. C1s are considered employees, and the same processes in general would apply in this situation.
Matt, would you like to offer any suggestions for supervisors as they work through the telework process?
Yeah, I think telework obviously is a little bit different than being able to see people face-to-face on a regular basis. It's important to stay organized and understand what it is you're trying to accomplish on a day-to-day basis. So again, as I said earlier, I think one of the key things is staying in touch with people, having these regularly scheduled meetings. Stay in touch with your peer group as well and learn and hear how other people are adapting. But the two biggest things, stay in touch, keep lines of communication open, and set some clear expectations on what you want to accomplish each day, each week, and then be able to communicate that out to staff.
Okay. Another question I have is, will quantum training and problem solutions still go on as they were on campus? And the answer to that question is yes. We have a team who is doing a virtual training actually today on a critical new report that came out. And those people who were doing help desk questions will continue to do those help desk questions and provide responses to people. Will emergency essential employees receive extra compensation?
Okay, the answer is the same. Individuals who are non-exempt and have been designated as essential for pandemic circumstances on campus will receive compensation related to the actual hours that they work on campus, specifically speaking about our non-exempt employees, security guards, our housekeepers and various staff that are playing a really critical role in keeping us running. Just as a note, certain emergency personnel such as police is a completely different thing, but I'm not really going into that since they don't generally telework. But
Will PDP deadlines still be in place?
As of now, we are open for business and continuing our processes. Yeah, so PDP deadlines are still in place. We'll continue to evaluate and discuss, and if that changes, we'll let everybody know.
This is a question about what should people, exempt employees, actually put on their time cards in terms of duty days or administrative days. And I would say hang tight and look for payroll guidance, because I think we're actually even trying to come up with a code that says COVID somehow so that we're real clear about how people should be paid. So just stay tuned for payroll guidance in terms of how to complete time sheets. Next question. And I think we maybe touched on this a little bit before. Elena, what guidance would you give to supervisors from a legal perspective in terms of supervising staff that they can't see because everybody's teleworking?
well, I think it's not that different from the way that we encourage supervisors to operate when they can see their employees, and that is to treat people as consistently and reasonably and without regard to any discriminatory factors as they would when the person's on campus. I think we can certainly hold our employees to expectations, as we all have bosses and are all held to certain expectations. I think communication is key. I have seen and responded to many FAQs over the past week where the answer is we encourage flexibility and we encourage people to work together. This is a very difficult situation for all of us, and so we have to work together. If someone is having a problem with an employee in terms of they're not performing or not doing what is expected, call this guy over here, you know.
Here's a question. I am teleworking and need to take off. Do I have to use my own leave or can I use administrative leave? Please explain for both exempt and non-exempt employees.
If someone needs to take time away, they need to use their accrued leave. We want to, as much as possible, everyone to understand that we are an open university, and it is business as usual with a bunch of caveats, and I understand we're all working remotely, predominantly remotely. So, but if you need to be away from your job, you should take leave. But it's for both exempt and non-exempt.
Are there any updates in terms of employee travel that we have to offer?
Well, university policy and guidance state that personal travel outside of the state of Maryland is strongly discouraged. International travel and personal travel that is university related has also been largely prohibited and curtailed outside of the state of Maryland with some special little exceptions. Individuals who travel against university advice and policy, if they are an employee, they are required to contact HR, who will go through the appropriate process for determining what happens. The university has made it clear that individuals who travel against advice may be required to stay away from campus. This could because they've traveled to a place that a 14-day self-quarantine or period away from campus is required. So it is important to talk to your supervisor. It's important to talk to HR before any travel so that you understand the scope of complications and consequences.
And I would just add there that it's important that if you do travel, contact your supervisor in human resources when you're returning, because what was in place 2 days ago might be different 2 days from now.
True.
Right now, if I choose to take vacation and I'm allowed to, as an essential employee, when I return back to campus, am I allowed to return to campus if I've gone out of state?
So there's not a single one-size-fits-all answer to that. As with the last question, you need to contact, if you're an employee, you need to contact HR, whether that's through central HR or if you're a faculty member through your HR representative in your school. They will be in contact with UMIC and making the analysis of whether an individual is going to be required to stay away from campus. I will say, as it relates to essential employees, supervisors could, if operationally a supervisor could not have someone who is an essential employee be away for 21 days, maybe they could handle a 7-day absence, but not a 21-day absence. They could potentially deny a leave request on that basis, because that's consistent with business operations, which is our policy.
To clarify, and this goes back to something you mentioned, Elena, if a non-exempt employee needs to tend to their children and can't work, they understand that they can use sick leave. But what happens if they don't have much sick leave or they run out of sick leave?
So the University System of Maryland has clarified for us that sick leave is available, but they have also stated that they have relaxed things like advanced sick leave and a bunch of other leave categories to use for COVID-related absences. And employees who are in that situation where they don't have leave or don't have much leave are encouraged to talk to HR to talk about options.
So a question that's being asked now has to do with when, again, I think there's a lot of concern about childcare needs. If the child's school is closed, is UMB going to release an official policy about flexibility? And I really think if you go to our frequently asked questions, you will find a lot of answers to the questions that you might have. And if in fact you can't find answers there, then feel free to contact Human Resources.
And Dawn, if I could just add to that, we are, a lot of people that are in this room are working really hard to get answers out to questions as soon as we can that are correct and helpful. If you are on an FAQ page and you discover something that is, you know, a link is broken or something's messed up, please let somebody know, because we really are trying to have the information available for everyone.
What is the expectation for monitoring at-home work? Are employees expected to track what they do day to day or week to week?
So, yeah, it's aligned with the questions that we answered earlier. If you are working from home, yeah, there is probably an expectation that you report back to your supervisor that certain tasks are completed. It helps us to stay in touch, for one, make sure that we're all being productive in the workplace. And at the end of the day, we still do need to get stuff done to keep the place running.
We don't know how long this mode of operation is going to be our new normal, so we definitely have to figure out and make sure that we're holding each other accountable to still producing a work product day in and day out. In any given 8-hour workday, if I work 4 hours and can't do any more, do I use 4 hours of administrative leave? We don't need to use annual leave since this is a university mandated, correct?
It depends. It depends on if the reason they're using, they work for 4 hours, they telework for 4 hours, and the reason they are not working for the remainder of the day, it implies that they are a non-exempt employee because they are tracking their specific 8 hours of a day, then yes, the answer would be that they use administrative leave. You know, with all the other caveats about sick leave is still for sick time, annual leave is still for personal leave of those types of natures. If it's an exempt employee, Matt mentioned before that exempt employee time is calculated differently and it's looked at differently, so it might not require, or might not even, the administrative leave might be completely inappropriate in that situation. So stay in contact with your supervisor.
From a supervisor, Vicki, this one's for you. How do you manage employees remotely that have internet challenges or are unable to connect?
So I think that's going to be a difficult question to answer outside of, again, maybe if you're talking about your ISP and getting in contact with them to see what is causing the issue.
What's the ISP?
So that's your internet service provider. So if you're using Verizon, Comcast, or Infinity as they're called now, contacting them, because I'm assuming that if you're having internet access, you're not also, if you have kids in the house, they're not surfing the web, and they're probably screaming at you already about getting the internet up and running. In addition to that, maybe, again, I hate to say this, but contact your IT support person. Maybe they can kind of step you through of how maybe to use your phone as a hotspot, so that you could use your phone to get Wi-Fi access. But again, reach out to your internet service provider if you're having internet issues at home, or contact your IT support person and they may be able to give you some suggestions on how to kind of overcome some of those challenges.
I know we've talked to several deans who are also willing to pay for those things just because they need the work product from the individual in their school. So if you need to have a hotspot and that's not something typically on your phone plan, you might talk to your dean about reimbursement. I will need to print and don't have a printer at home. What are my options?
So unfortunately, I think, and we had a similar question a couple of days ago. We've been instructing people to contact their supervisor, and maybe that is a purchase that can be authorized to get a printer, a home printer at home, so that you could be able to continue to do your work at home. Again, I would reach out to your supervisor to see how you should move forward with that. outside of, we don't want people to come to campus if they don't have to. So I would definitely reach out to your supervisor, and then depending on that decision, you may be following up with your IT person to kind of get that process moving.
If you are considered a high-risk patient but are considered essential personnel, what options are there?
Okay, so this, I have information on this. First of all, we answer this question, or we put out information on this topic over the weekend. If individuals are, have a health condition or factor that could make them more high risk, they are potentially eligible for accommodations and should contact HR. Then today, I received information that, again, USM, in an effort to really help schools, has clarified that individuals who have high-risk factors could be eligible to use sick leave or for other accommodations that, again, these are things that are not normally available, so these are COVID-19 related. But please contact HR, contact your supervisor. Supervisors have also been given the same advice that they need to be accommodating and flexible with these individuals.
Will my parking be prorated since I won't be using it for a couple of weeks? As we've repeatedly said, the university is not closed, and we are making every effort to make sure that nobody is financially damaged by this, including to playing in those employees who really can't do their job from home. So we're trying to be as accommodating as we can to employees. Given that, no, we are not going to be reimbursing for parking, not at this time, because the costs will go on in terms of paving lots, maintenance, et cetera. And so that's the answer to that question. Again, we'll continue to review it as we go throughout the rest of this period to see if any changes are there. Here's one. 2 of my coworkers wanted to donate 4 days total to me because I'm a C1 employee, but was told by HR they could not. Can you please explain why, if someone else that they are either salary or non-exempt employees wants to donate their time to me and couldn't when it is their personal time?
Yeah, so currently we don't have a leave donation program. If this is related to COVID-19, we do have generous leave that's been made available through USM. So if it is a situation about taking time off related to COVID-19, give us a call and we can work through that specific situation with you.
Vicki, I'm curious about any updates to Citrix. I was told yesterday IT was working to see if they can expand the window allowed to use the remote desktop. Any update on this?
Unfortunately, within Central IT, we're not using Citrix, but I would recommend that you follow up with the IT support staff that is supporting your department, and hopefully they can provide an update on what the progress is of that project. But unfortunately, I can't really give you any specifics because I'm not familiar with that project.
For essential employees, has UMB considered childcare options temporarily on campus? Anybody want to take that one, or should I?
I believe that, well, you can go ahead. You probably are in a better position to answer this.
So we are really focused on trying to have as many people off campus as possible. And we have not worked with anyone on this topic. Our downtown, what's our DBCC Child Care Center has closed as a result of the governor's mandate, and I don't think we've actually gotten this question into the EOT, to the Emergency Operations Center at this point. So if you would like to submit a question to them, send it to Jonathan Bratt, and we'll see what our options are. Again, it's very difficult. The governor has said not to establish childcare, and that's not something that you can just pop up and have a room and say kids come. You have to have specific functions in place and meet regulations, etc. I have a cold and have bad allergies and am emergency essential. UMB says don't come in if you're sick. Should I come in? No. Stay home, all sick people, please stay home. What happens if you have to take care of a family member affected, but you are not? Stay home and take care of your family member.
Right.
Sure, yes. Things such as the Family Medical Leave Act still apply. If an individual has to take care of a dependent, whether that's a child or a parent, we still have provisions that cover those situations. And if you have any questions, you should contact HR. They will cover those matters.
Can people who need to come to work and usually use public transportation now use parking spaces for those who are telecommuting? And my answer would be yes, because there is space available, but you would have to buy a parking spot or have your department give you a validation to cover the parking for those days that you have to come into work. Let's see. If you are non-essential, can you still come to your office briefly for work that can only be done on campus? The answer to that is no. We are really trying to stand firm. The whole issue of people working from home is all about social distancing. The least amount of contact you have, your chances of staying healthier, the better. So no, we really don't want you on campus if you are not essential. Get creative and figure out another way to do whatever you need to do without coming to campus. Question, did you say C1 employees will not be paid? We did not say that. So I hope that answers that question. I'm assigned to park at Saratoga Garage. If I need to be on campus, would it be possible to park in a closer garage? I'd ask you to talk to parking and find out if that's a possibility. I don't even want to say probably, but I will say probably. But talk to parking and see what the options are available to you. One of the questions we have are any of the buildings on campus going to be closed? And yes, we do have some buildings that have been identified as closed, but that is the building, that is not campus. Campus is not closed. And you will be able to talk to your supervisor and find out. It's basically the occupants of the building that have helped us figure out which ones are going to be closed. For sure, we can tell you that the library is closed. Are managers given guidelines on what qualifies a person as essential? Who wants to answer this one again?
Yeah, we went through a process with the entire university to designate every single person as one of 4 categories, breaking down into essential on campus, essential telework, telework off campus, and off campus no telework. That was done in conjunction with the supervisors, and there were definitions that were sent out at that time. I think that answers the question.
I think that answers the question, but I think the main thing to understand is that this is a circumstantial kind of condition, and what makes one essential in one circumstance doesn't mean that they're essential in all circumstances. And so we are allowing for and encouraging flexibility, and the supervisors not have employees on campus if what they're doing doesn't need to be done on campus. But it's going to change, and it could change day to day, even where an essential employee is essential on one day and not the next day, because a building may have closed and no longer requires that support. So just continue to communicate supervisor to employee.
Lots of parking questions coming in. We have time for probably about 2 or 3 more questions. Isn't it possible to offer essential employees free parking to help them out, especially since the rest of us are still paying for it? For essential employees that are exempt and coming to campus, they're still being paid straight time. And for non-exempt employees that are coming to campus, in many cases, they're being paid double time. So the need to offer free parking does not really seem like it's essential there. It isn't placing additional hardship on anyone. The next question, can non-essential still park in their respective garage if they need to come to Baltimore for personal needs such as a doctor or dentist appointment. Yes, you can. We're not going to take your access for your swipe card, so yes, you can still use our garages to park. Any other questions? Anything that our panelists would like to leave the audience with?
I would strongly encourage people to go to the COVID-19 website. As Elena said, it's constantly being updated with very good information. This is a fluid event, so definitely go to that website, as well as CITS also has a website with some of the telework information that was discussed here if you didn't catch it. And again, communication is just going to be key during this time. Keep in contact with your supervisors and your IT support staff.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. I hope we were able to answer many of your concerns. We do realize that there was significant audio problems, but never fear, we will have the video and the audio posted for you later on our website, on our COVID-19 website. Enjoy the rest of your day, and please stay healthy.